Hi, friends. Welcome to the channel. Before we dive into this incredible story, do me a favor. If you love tales of true courage, of destinies intersecting on the battlefield, and of those fragile threads connecting the past with our present, hit subscribe and the bell icon. Every like and comment you leave, especially one saying "we remember" under this video, sends a signal to the algorithms that stories like these matter. That memory matters. Let's make this video go viral, not for the sake of numbers, but for the sake of remembrance. Here we go. Sometimes history isn't just dates in a textbook. It's living breath you can feel if you listen closely enough. Picture a quiet post-war German town. An older man, an apothecary, walks down the street. Calm, measured steps. Who would have guessed, just by looking at him, that his eyes once reflected burning Soviet tanks through the dusty window of his pharmacy? That those hands, now carefully weighing herbs and powders, once coolly and precisely aimed the sights of a Tiger tank at its target? His name was Otto Carius, one of the most successful tank aces of World War II. And opposite him, in the very battle we'll be discussing today, were other young men with equally fiery eyes. Captain Konstantin Orlovsky and Battalion Commander Ivan Moroz. Their fates would collide in a bloody dance near a Belarusian village with a beautiful, almost melodic name, Malinovo. The summer of 1944. In this confrontation, everything would unfold. Tactical genius and fatal mistakes, despair and honor, life and death. And one phrase Carius would utter decades later to Russian historian Artem Drabkin: "We didn't touch the medals." A phrase concealing an entire universe of soldiers' mutual respect. But let's start from the beginning. To grasp the full scale of this drama, we need to rewind the tape and see the bigger picture. Context: the fiery summer of 1944. To understand the battle at Malinovo, you must clearly picture what was happening around it. June 1944. The Red Army was conducting one of the grandest operations of the entire Second World War, Operation Bagration. Named after Prince Pyotr Bagration, a hero of the War of 1812, this wasn't just an offensive. It was a crushing steamroller designed to annihilate the Wehrmacht's strongest formation, Army Group Center. Soviet command had learned how to fight. After the Battle of Kursk, after liberating Ukraine, it was Belarus's turn. And the strategy was brilliant. Not a frontal assault on fortified positions, but a series of deep breakthroughs aimed at encircling and destroying entire armies. Imagine the map: dense forests, impassable swamps of Polesia, sparse roads. The Germans considered this terrain too difficult for large mechanized units. They were tragically mistaken. Using partisan experience, Belarus was a land of partisans. Soviet troops found hidden passages. The strikes were lightning fast. Within the first few days, the front collapsed. German divisions, which had felt secure just yesterday, now found themselves trapped in enormous cauldrons. One such cauldron was closing around the Wehrmacht's 290th Infantry Division. Right at the tip of one of the Soviet spearheads operated the 51st Tank Brigade, part of the 5th Tank Corps. Their mission: advance as quickly as possible, cut off roads, and prevent the Germans from escaping the encirclement. Command was pushing hard. War is always a race against time. Every hour of delay gave the enemy a chance to organize defenses or break out. And so our brigade seized the village of Malinovo. A bridgehead seemed secured. But command realized the key point was the Zalumi railway station. Whoever controlled the rails controlled escape routes. The brigade commander's order was clear, and, as it would later prove, fatal: send a reconnaissance detachment forward to capture the station. And here we encounter the first tragic crossroads. Heroes on both sides of the barricade. The reconnaissance detachment was placed under the command of Captain Konstantin Ignatievich Orlovsky, a young officer, only 24 years old. Energetic, decisive, he'd already led several successful attacks. In 1945, he would be posthumously awarded the title Hero of the Soviet Union. But back then, in July 1944, he was simply a captain carrying out orders. Orders that, according to some sources and memoirs, included a crucial condition: conduct cautious combat reconnaissance, send out patrols, check the flanks. The surrounding terrain was a nightmare for tank crews. a narrow dirt road flanked by forests and swamps, perfect ambush country. And what about the Germans? They weren't about to surrender their 290th Division without a fight. High command threw heavy armor into the fray, Stu-G assault guns, and, most importantly for our story, heavy Tiger tanks from the 502nd SS Heavy Tank Battalion. Among the crews of these Tigers was SS Unterscharführer Otto Carius. Already credited with nearly 50 destroyed tanks, he was an Eastern Front veteran, a cold-blooded professional. He and his comrade Albert Kircher, another future ace, received orders: don't charge head-on into Soviet lines. Instead, use their knowledge of the terrain, German cartography was excellent, to stealthily flank or even better, get behind the advancing Soviet units. Picture their Tigers, nearly 60 tons of steel, 88mm guns capable of piercing the frontal armor of any Soviet tank of that era from a distance of 1.5 to 2 kilometers. These steel monsters rumbled along backcountry roads, circling like predators stalking prey. The fatal mistake and exposed like open palms. And here came the tragic breakdown. Captain Orlovsky, obeying, or perhaps, driven by excessive eagerness to fulfill his orders as quickly as possible, the directive for speed, did not send out adequate reconnaissance. His detachment, which included his own T-34-85, a new, powerful model with an 85mm gun, 2 IS-2 tanks, Iosif Stalin, formidable heavy tanks with 122mm guns, commanded by Lieutenants Romazanov and Berezin, plus other vehicles, advanced toward the station essentially blind. They assumed the enemy lay ahead, along the route to Zalumi Station. But Carius and Kircher had already slipped behind them, taking up positions on the outskirts of Malinovo. In his memoirs, Tigers in the Mud, Carius later recalled this moment with chilling simplicity. He wrote that the Soviet tanks appeared to him like open palms. They stood practically broadside to his guns, completely unaware of the danger, an ideal target for a sniper shot from ambush. Picture the scene. A hot summer day, dust on the road, the rumble of engines. Our tank crews might be chatting, smoking, looking ahead, expecting to meet the enemy en route to the station. Meanwhile, behind them, from behind a hillock or tree line, 2 Tigers watched through optical sights. The first shots hit our men like thunder from a clear sky. Hell in Malinovo, chronicle of the battle. The battle was short and brutal. Shells tore through the sides of T-34s and even the mighty IS tanks at tremendous velocity. The first machines hit were those positioned south of the village, including Captain Orlovsky's tank, number 410. The crew likely died instantly. Then came the turn of Lieutenants Romazanov's and Berezin's IS-2s. Though their frontal armor was impervious to a Tiger's gun at medium range, they were struck from the side or rear, where armor was thinner. Within minutes, the reconnaissance detachment was decapitated and partly destroyed. But Carius didn't stop there. Hearing the gunfire and realizing what was happening, the main battalion forces, commanded by Guards Captain Ivan Mihailovich Moros, tried to turn and organize a defense. But the Tigers, now revealed, launched a frontal assault. Using their superior armor and firepower on open ground, they methodically destroyed Soviet vehicles. 6 more tanks were lost in this phase. German aircraft soon appeared overhead, strafing the area. Soviet IS-2s from the 48th Guards Independent Heavy Tank Regiment, hearing the artillery fire, attempted a counterattack, but caught in air raids and facing well-positioned Tigers, they lost another 2 or 3 tanks. The battle turned into a massacre. The Russian officer with the Gold Star. The heaviest loss that day was Battalion Commander Ivan Moros. Otto Carius later recalled this man in his interview with Drabkin. He described finding the body of a Russian officer after the battle. He had shot himself rather than be taken prisoner. On his tunic, Carius remembered, was a gold star of a hero. And here lies one of the most poignant moments of this story. Carius said, "We didn't touch the medals. That wasn't honorable." This simple phrase speaks volumes. Yes, they were enemies, deadly enemies. But even in that hell, there existed a line that true soldiers, fighting not for ideology but out of duty, refused to cross. Looting the bodies of fallen heroes was beneath their dignity. It was an act of strange, war-distorted but genuine respect. Yet the story takes another turn. Ivan Moroz was not yet a hero of the Soviet Union in July 1944. He received the title posthumously in March 1945. The hero's star is gold, but according to Soviet documents and photographs, Moroz might have been wearing other decorations that day. The Order of the Red Banner or the Order of the Patriotic War, both featuring a red star at their center. Perhaps Carius, glimpsing a bloodied tunic, mistook the red enamel of an order's star for the gold of a hero's star. It doesn't matter. What matters is the fact itself. This officer fought to the end and chose death over capture. And his enemies saw it and remembered. Notably, the Germans themselves buried the fallen Soviet tank crews. 5 days later, Malinovo would be retaken by Soviet forces during the ongoing offensive. But the memory of that battle would endure forever. Reflections by the Eternal Flame. So what does this story tell us? Friends, why did I spend so much time reconstructing it in detail? This isn't just a military chronicle. It's a story about the fragility of human decisions in war. One missed reconnaissance patrol and dozens of lives lost, a mission failed. It's a story of professionalism. Carius and his crew were virtuosos of their deadly craft. It's a story of courage and duty. Orlovsky, Moroz, their tank crews, they fulfilled their duty at the cost of their lives. They didn't flee. They accepted battle under the worst possible conditions. And it's also a story of how memory erases boundaries. An old German apothecary and young Soviet officers whose names are carved on memorials in Belarus. They are forever linked by that hot day near the village of Malinovo. Their confrontation was absolute. Their goals mutually exclusive. Yet in one thing they were alike. They were soldiers. And in the deaths of some and the memories of others was born that strange brotherhood in arms that sometimes emerges between worthy adversaries. Reading Carius's memoirs and watching his interviews, I often wondered, who was he as a person outside the tank? He said that after the war, all he wanted was silence and peace. He spent his days healing people in his pharmacy. Ivan Moroz was only 23 years old. What might he have done if he'd lived? Maybe built cities, raised children. War stole those possibilities from both sides. So whenever you hear dry casualty figures, picture the faces behind them. Real destinies. Captain Orlovsky, rushing to fulfill his orders. Comrade Moroz, trying desperately to salvage the situation. The T-34 driver who, in his final moment, might have seen the terrifying muzzle of a tiger through his periscope. And the German gunner Carius, pulling the trigger while following orders. This is the tragedy and the truth of war. No romance. Only steel, blood, courage, and chance. Friends, today we've relived just one of thousands of frontline stories. But each such story is a brick in the edifice of our shared memory. If this account touched your soul, if you want stories like these never to be forgotten, please do 3 simple things. First, leave a comment below with the name that resonated with you most. Ivan Moroz, Otto Carius, Konstantin Orlovsky, or simply the word we remember. Let's build a virtual memorial right here in the comments. Second, like this video, algorithms need to understand that this topic matters to real people, not bots. And third, most importantly, subscribe to the channel. Many more deep dives into history await. We'll discuss technology, strategy, and the fates of ordinary soldiers and generals without falseness or pomp. Just facts, analysis, and human stories. Thank you for staying with me until the end. This story is our shared duty, to those who remained there, near the village of Malinovo, and to those who carried their memories through an entire lifetime. Eternal memory to the fallen. Peace to us all. Until next time on air.